Your brain edits reality every 3 seconds. That's not a flaw, it's the system. And it's the exact system they're trained to exploit. What follows are 7 cognitive lies. You've already fallen for most of them. Neuroscience calls it predictive processing. Your brain fills in gaps, confirms existing beliefs, and smooths over inconsistencies before you're conscious of the information at all. You are not experiencing reality. You are experiencing your brain's best guess at it. They don't convince you of a false belief. They plant a seed, and your own mind grows the rest. Confirmation bias doesn't need their help after the first suggestion. It recruits your memory, your perception, your instincts, all of it, working against you. Once the idea is planted, you find it everywhere. Not because it multiplied, because your attention filter was reset without your permission. You're not discovering the pattern, you're constructing it. When a belief about someone feels absolute, write down 3 reasons the opposite might also be true. Not to dismiss your instinct, to stress test it. The belief that can't survive scrutiny was never a fact. It was a suggestion. Attractiveness is a manipulation vector. Studies show we assign competence, honesty, and warmth to people based on physical appearance, before they've said a single word. The charm you felt in the first 30 seconds wasn't about them. It was about your brain. The halo effect is involuntary. You didn't choose to trust them more because they were polished. The assignment happened before conscious evaluation, which means the manipulation preceded the conversation. You were already disadvantaged before they spoke. Strip out the charm and read the words. If you received the exact same message by email, unfamiliar sender, no face, no tone, would you trust it? The email test separates the argument from the performance. Most of the time, the dump and agree trap relies on a simple mechanic. Overwhelm your capacity for evaluation, and you default to compliance. They don't need your genuine agreement. They just need you too busy to notice you've given it.
Agree. Under this flood, is it really a choice?
The speed was intentional. The volume was intentional. The moment you reached for the pen was the moment the tactic succeeded. Complexity deployed as a weapon doesn't require you to be unintelligent. It requires you to be human. When information arrives faster than you can process it, stop. One document at a time. One decision at a time. Summarize what you've heard back to them. Watch what changes in their face when you stop rushing. The urgency was never about the decision. Fog isn't an emotion, it's a delivery system. Fear says, something bad will happen if you don't comply. Obligation says, you owe this. Guilt says, you've already failed. All 3 create the same response. Urgency without logic. The moment you name the mechanism, it loses traction. Not completely, but enough. When you feel rushed into a response, ask, is this fear, obligation, guilt? Because the feeling is real. The urgency is 5 words that interrupt the fog loop. I'm feeling rushed, not wrong. It separates the emotional experience from the factual claim. It tells them, and you, that the pressure is noted and will not be confused with evidence. They don't need to make their behavior acceptable. They just need to make it look moderate by comparison. The anchor shifts, your baseline follows. What was a clear violation becomes not as bad as, and not as bad as is not good enough. It just feels like it is. When you catch yourself thinking, at least it wasn't, stop there. That sentence doesn't describe your standard. It describes the comparison they selected. Return to your own line, the one that existed before the anchor moved. The warmth isn't inconsistent by accident. Intermittent reinforcement is the most powerful conditioning mechanism known to psychology. The dopamine spike on the unpredictable reward is higher than on the consistent one. You didn't chase the warmth because it was good. You chased it. Start a simple count. Requests versus warmth. Asks versus affection. You don't need math, you need pattern recognition. When the ratio tips, when asks consistently outpace warmth, that's not a rough patch. That's the structure. They don't need to change the past. They just need you to doubt it. Once you distrust your own memory, you outsource your sense of reality to the person who corrupted it. The confusion is not a side effect. It is the intended outcome. When something feels wrong but you can't articulate why, pause before you respond. Not to delay, to separate the emotional signal from the reactive impulse. The pause is where your intelligence operates. Everything else is reaction. A single event can be explained away. 2 events is coincidence. 3 events is a pattern. The journal doesn't just record, it reveals. Write down what happened. Look at it again in a week. The shape will be there.
I just had to write it down to see.
When they say it didn't happen, you need more than memory. You need documentation, screenshots, timestamps, voice memos, a neutral third party. Not because you failed to trust yourself, because the record is harder to argue with than the feeling. The journal is a closed system they can't access. Write the date. Write what was said. Write what you felt. Return to it when doubt arrives. Your past self was writing to your future self specifically for this moment. The entry is the testimony. The tactic requires you not to see it. The moment it's named, labeled, categorized, placed, it changes shape. It doesn't disappear, but it loses the camouflage. Fear works in the dark. So does guilt. Name them both. Awareness doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you precise. You're not seeing threats everywhere. You're seeing patterns clearly. The difference is calibration. Paranoia is unfocused fear. Pattern recognition is trained attention. You're doing the second. Every cognitive bias is a feature, not a bug. They evolved for a world where fast pattern recognition meant survival. Manipulators exploit the speed. The defense is not to override your instincts. It's to run them through a second pass before you. The slot machine only works while you're seated. The jackpot doesn't change when you stand up, but your relationship to it does. Distance is the only thing the intermittent reward system can't compensate for. Leave the room. The machine keeps running. You just stopped being a variable. An outside perspective does what your internal one cannot. It confirms, challenges, or recalibrates your read on the situation without the emotional stakes attached. Your trusted person isn't deciding for you. They're showing you what the evidence looks like to someone who isn't inside it.
You're right.
Your audit is now active. Not because you're suspicious of everyone, because you've learned the 7 entry points and can recognize them on approach. The audit doesn't close a door. It gives you the choice of whether to open it.
Audit complete.
7 lies. All invisible until named. Confirmation bias. Halo effect. Cognitive overload. Fog loop. Anchoring. Intermittent reward. Memory rewrites. Each one is a normal cognitive function being used against you. Awareness is the audit. The question is genuine. Which of the 7 caught you before you knew to look? Most people have a primary vulnerability. The bias that runs hardest. The reward cycle that holds longest. Knowing yours is the first move in neutralizing it. Comment it. Someone else is carrying this. Your brain is still editing reality every 3 seconds. That doesn't change. What changes is that you now know where the edits happen, where the shortcuts are, where the entry points are. The glitches are the same. You are not. This is deception circuit.